All right. Let me try to get it set up here. Let's see. It won't save, so I have to play it like this.
Okay, this is Harvey Ottinger, speaking with Zach McQuaid, live from the borderline. And subject today is the ride and the environment when I took Kurt Cobain to the airport on March 30th. And
Let's just connect that to a speaker. Just a sec. There was that. One moment.
Cobain to the airport.
1 second.
Okay, this is Harvey Ottinger, speaking with Zach McQuaid, Life of a Borderline. And subject today is the ride and the environment when I took Kurt Cobain to the airport on March 30th. And of course, I've told this story a lot of times, but we've really kind of dived into a bit because for 31 years, I never really thought that it was much, it was really a good story about getting the shells, but there's a little bit more to it. So what happened is I waited around about a half hour to 45 minutes at Kurt's house, and there was creepy guys. I mean, there was people looking through the window, and I'm just sitting there going, "Where's Kurt? Come on, I got to get him to the airport." And there was, I have always described it as creepy. For 32 years now, that's basically how I describe that wait at Kurt's house on Lake Washington Boulevard. And finally, he just showed up, dropped in, and we had a really uneventful ride. He was very quiet. I didn't know he was going to rehab. And then upon arrival, of course, as he exited the vehicle, I let him know we had him there in plenty of time. And he just, upon exiting the vehicle, he realized that a box of shells were in his carry-on bag. And he was very surprised that those shells were in his carry-on bag. And he said, "Oh, F," and then he proceeds to tell me how he had bought a shotgun and shells earlier that day. The shells were in his carry-on bag, and never really thought much about how those shells got in the carry-on bag. But what was striking and what was incredibly memorable was Kurt handing me the shells and just, he had very powerful eyes and just locked his eyes onto mine. And he told me more than twice that it was really important that I get him back to his house. And I never did. I didn't. I had two jobs. I felt terrible. I don't know. I didn't know who to return them to. I didn't know where to put them. And it was kind of a weird experience. And of course, I knew Kurt had some problems in Rome earlier, where what was then known as an attempt on him taking his life, which of course is controversial now. But now, I've really done a lot of thinking because, of course, fast forwarding a little bit, we'll go back, but fast forwarding, when Kurt's body was found, I made a police report at 11:45 a.m. Very simple police report to Don Cameron, who was really on site at the Lake Washington home. They hadn't announced it was Kurt yet. I thought he had, possibly shot somebody for protection or whatever. Anyway, that police report was made, and Zach has copies of it. It's never been changed. The only problem that I think we talked about last time is it said it was done by Davis, and of course that was on the last podcast we did. So anyway, on April 12th, 4 days afterwards, and it was already declared a suicide, and I didn't know this, but they had inquired Dylan, and Dylan called in and stated he was in the car with Kurt and I, and that Kurt had told me to keep the shells, and that was the last time he saw Kurt. Well, for me, that was a transformational moment. A year and a half ago, I did not know that about that report. And of course, at that point, everything changed. You know, for 31 years, I believed Kurt had taken his life. And then I knew it didn't, because I'd been involved and people were questioning me, and that's how I found out. And I'm like pissed, very upset. Like, what the hell? Why didn't the police at least follow up Don Cameron and say, hey, you know, I don't think it's a big deal, but I thought that we spoke to a person named Dylan Carlson. I didn't know who Dylan Carlson was, but he said he was in the car with you, and he said that Kurt told you to keep the shells. And of course, that got Zach, and I've explained this to Zach, and that got our wheels turning, and I've been reliving those moments. And what's really struck me was that Kurt and that look in his eyes, you know, that he told, you know, giving me, and I never had time to ask him, like, are you okay, or is something wrong? He had to get that flight. So he handed them to me, insisted I get them back. And it went, you know, and that was the last time I saw Kurt. Well, now, because he was so surprised, we're getting to believe, and I don't have any proof of this, but were those shells planted? You know, for him to get busted going through security at the airport, sending him home, you know, and of course, this would have been big news probably. And I don't know, maybe going back, they might have already had a murder plan hatched for him. But what I can't get over is that we kind of figured it out that he caught them planting the shells, and he was going to go to rehab, but he wanted me to get those shells back to let them know that he knew what they did. He knew they would set him up. And that kind of goes into the next step. It's like, why he got to rehab. I mean, I think he checked into rehab March 31st. You know, I don't know what he did March 30th. He would have gotten into LA very late, you know, probably 10 to 11:30. But I believe Danny Goldberg, his manager, you know, I've had somebody said that he's the one that drove, you know, and he sat with him on the airplane. I didn't know Danny Goldberg, but he was his manager. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I think that these things really got Kurt angry while he was at rehab. And of course, there's another story that he got a Vanity Fair magazine that highlighted Courtney's interview that she had cheated on Kurt with Billy Corrigan of the Smashing Pumpkins. And that would have been another thing that would have absolutely enraged him. And so those are the reasons that I believe he left rehab on Saturday and flew back to Seattle. Meaning it wasn't because he wanted to leave rehab. I mean, he probably wasn't happy there in the first place. But I think he was going back to Seattle to square things up, to get the, you know, kind of the parasites out of his house, let him know that Nirvana was ending, that everything was going to change. Courtney was going to, you know, the divorce, and he went in back to Seattle to clean house. I can't guarantee that, but I'm just trying to add things up because it makes sense. And of course, he went out that, you know, he got back, he got picked up at the airport by Seattle limousine, a lady named Linda Walker, and that's all chronicled. But what we don't know, and, you know, I think that he went back and he pretty much, Courtney had been trying to get rid of him. And of course, but anyway, he was murdered. You know, basically when he came back, he probably raised hell, let him know that the gig was up. And that's when the murder plot probably occurred, you know, and they took him down. And I think Zach has put the time down to 2:32 a.m. on Sunday morning, which would have also been daylight savings time, I believe, would have just kicked in, or maybe it was that following. I can't remember, but
yeah, that's the thing. That's why people were like, maybe, you know, Sunday night in the AM possibly means Monday because daylight savings happened at that time. But,
right, and you know, and that's where my story ends. But I keep thinking, why was he so surprised the shells were in his carry-on bag? You know, and another thing too that I kind of got through today, the shells never showed up on the receipt. And of course, when the body was found, it had the receipt of the shotgun shells. I mean, I'm not the shells, but the shotgun with no shells. But of course, my story is validated by my police report. And plus, you know, that's just the way it just was the truth.
I want to add this
So
too. Dylan shouldn't have known about those shells and returning them, Kurt returning them to you, unless he spoke with Kurt when Kurt came back from rehab, and we know because of Joe Burns.
exactly. Right. So on the 12th, he stated to Cameron that was the last time he saw Kurt, but he knew about the shells. Well, how did he know about the shells?
Yeah,
and that's where, it's like, how did Dylan know about the shells? And the only way he would have known is if he had talked to Kurt and Kurt had told him and had maybe got upset at him that what the hell did you do?
Confronting him just like he wanted you to do by returning the bullets for him.
Yeah, and of course they had the shells that I received were Remington, just like the gun, 20 gauge, what they call bird shot, which is a very small BB used for game, upland game. It's not, you wouldn't use a shell like that, but anyway, they managed. I don't know how he got the shells that he was shot with were Winchester shells. Same gauge, meant for a 20 gauge shotgun, which is, primarily used for grouse and pheasants and that type of hunting.
I believe he did go out and get them too on Saturday because he didn't return them because some of the BBs were taken out just like his grandfather taught him how to do so that you don't really hurt whatever you are shooting.
Yeah, I mean, the force of a shotgun, depending on the gauge, it has more power behind it. Birdshot is not really a killing shot. Not like if you shoot somebody with birdshot, if at 30 yards they're going to survive, but up close it would certainly do the job. But as we well know, his head wasn't blown off or anything, or the top of his head. The BBs never even penetrated the skull. They stayed all in his brain. But anyway.
All right, so that is what we have for that. I have to find a way to save that through my filmmaker. I haven't been able to. I tried to save it like over 12 times. So I just thought I'd come on live finally and do that. But I have to be kind of quiet because I'm in a basement. I moved and I have a basement roommate, so I have to be really quiet. But yeah, Rob, Harvey did say that it was like Kurt suddenly showed up at the limo, like he was trying to hide and sneak around. I'll stay on for a bit. But that was that. We have a lot more. Here, I'll play one more thing if I can. Let's see. I'm working on a video right now, again. Multiple. Even Joe's for his podcast. Let's see. It may have even been Mark Lanigan. But they all three of them had long hair. All right. This is a video I made last night in the basement illustrating how those fresh marks on Kurt's body could have happened based on what Joe Burns has said. that he's seen happen to Kurt in the basement band room specifically. One moment. I'm wearing the shirt Kurt died in, the half Japanese one, in the video and right now. But you'll see it. I'm still working on it. Yeah, that's the video I'm working on right now. I'll try to find another video that I'm possibly doing right now. I want you to, let's listen to this from Kurt's counselor at Exodus Rehab. He speaks exactly about what Joe was speaking about how Kurt wanted to work on 4-track records.
At 7:55 p.m., Kurt arrived at this hospital in Los Angeles to begin a 28-day program. His counselor was Niall Stimson. This is the first time Niall has ever spoken about the time they spent together.
Exodus is, or was at that time, a rehabilitation program for people having drug and alcohol problems. And it's where a lot of rock stars have gone through recovery themselves, and now they support each other and they stay sober. And they have a network where they have special meetings and they all go to, and which actually really works really well for those that want to participate. But I had the feeling that he didn't really want anything to do with that type of scene. He didn't want to hear about recovery really very much at all. I mean, I don't believe that, in my opinion, he was even really ready to look at his addiction as being an issue. And the last thing he wanted to do was be preached by all these rock gods.
At 7:55 p.m., Kurt arrived at this hospital in Los Angeles to begin a 28-day program. His counselor was Niall Stimson.
Let me find that exact spot where he's speaking about that. The 4-track record.
Next door to Kurt.
I'm going to go out and buy designer clothes. He was happy to have jeans that didn't have holes in them, you know, and have like a new warm winter coat. Like,
to notify family.
Did you have any idea who he was?
I didn't. We need to confirm
the fact that he did keep.
It was more
It's Community World. They are scholars. Bass player
from Exodus. The class, I foresaw anything by any means, but he was down and he was
Of the most
Dave lent Kurt
Was even really ready.
Angeles to begin a 28-day program. His counselor was Niall Stimson. It was covered by Tori Amos, Weird Al Yankovic, and King of the Swing, Paul Anka.
With the lights out, less dangerous, here we are now. Entertain us, I feel stupid. Please.
Go anywhere you've seen. He didn't want to hear about recovery.
In his diaries, he said that
And he was somewhat... I get the feeling he didn't think that he was a junkie and that he had a legitimate reason, and he was somewhat different.
For your love. For your love.
You know, Bobby Sherman was like David, pop music, you know. I mean, he would just sit up there. I was married to...
He identified himself.
it was clear that after only one day in Exodus, here was a man tortured by a much bigger conflict than simply being a junkie.
He wanted to go back to just making records on a 4-track, that type of thing. You know, you're this rich rock star. You could basically go away, go anywhere you want to go. And, you know, if you don't want to be in the music industry, fine.
There you have it. It's exactly it's exactly what Joe said. He wanted to, he said in the kitchen to Joe and to Callie that he was, well, he gave a 4-track record to Callie. That's what he was doing.
It was clear that after only one day in Exodus, here was a man tortured by a much bigger conflict than simply being a junkie.
He wanted to go back to just making records on a 4-track, that type of thing. You know, you're this rich rock star. You could basically go away, go anywhere you want to go. And, you know, if you don't want to be in the music industry, fine. You know, you could get well. And I said, well, why can't you do that? But on the other side, he just sort of had that sort of like, well, if I do that, then I may never get back. They may forget me, you know, and sort of very torn between I don't want to be a rock star, but I don't want to lose it either.
The following day, April the 1st, Kurt jumped over the back wall of Exodus.
He just slipped over the wall, which was always, you know, sort of a fascinating thing to all the employees that worked there because the door was just down the hallway. Could easily walk out. There were no cameras. There were no guards on the door, and probably nobody would have noticed him missing for 30 minutes anyway.
Matthew Ricker, he called Exodus and they said he didn't do that. But if that's incorrect and he did do that, it's probably because he was getting death threats and he wanted to avoid any danger. I'll be right back, but I'll keep playing this.
While Kurt was jumped over the back wall of Exodus,
he just slipped over the wall, which was always, you know, sort of a fascinating thing to all the employees that worked there because the door was just down the hallway. Could easily walk out. There were no cameras. There were no guards on the door, and probably nobody would have noticed him missing for 30 minutes anyway.
While Kurt was running away from his rehab, his wife Courtney Love was also in LA, trying to deal with her own addiction problems.
Especially his wife, Courtney. Right, Harvey? And, no, I'm going to break this. Courtney was there. She did even a revealing drawing of her in a red dress, just like Joe and Bonnie said, with a person in front of her with a trigger finger all blistered and blue. Mark Lanigan's lyrics, years later. She was there. He was stalked all the way back. He was followed all the way back from LA to Seattle.
She was staying at the Peninsula Hotel in Beverly Hills, undergoing a controversial hotel detox program. Instead of going to see her, Kurt jumps into a cab and heads for the airport. She will not see him again. His first girlfriend, Tracy Marinder.
He was skinny and he didn't have a job, but the fact that he liked pets and kids was a big plus because he just kind of felt like the mothering instinct, and some of us have that mothering instinct more than others do. Yes, but then the fact that he did keep more closed-minded about how he felt about things, or he could be real sarcastic sometimes too, as well as funny. But there was that paradox there. Because I think to a certain extent he liked being mothered, but then he didn't want to be. It kind of went both ways,
And did he talk to you much about growing up in Aberdeen?
Just kind of how it was a really rednecky town, and he felt out of place. Like he felt like he just didn't fit in with everyone else because they wanted to do, I don't know. I guess he thought that they thought he was weird. And they were all into sports and doing things. And I know he tried wrestling for a year. His dad kind of pushed him into it, and he didn't like it at all.
He wasn't big on wrestling.
No.
I was so withdrawn by that time, and I was so antisocial that I was almost insane. I always felt that they would vote me most likely to kill everyone at a high school dance.
Death to everyone is gonna come. It makes hosing much more fun.
I've gotten to that point where I've fantasized about it, but I would always have opted for killing myself first.
Kurt did make one friend at high school, Chris Novoselic. Together they formed a band called the Sellouts and played the local taverns of Aberdeen.
So we're gonna stop that, and I'm gonna go soaked in bleach. I just want to go over it. I do believe, and other people know as well, that go on and speak about the Cobain case, that Tom did see the body, but I want Harvey to see this because he hasn't watched it.
Downtrodden of society, or the average Joe on the street who wants to look up to his lyrics and his music and say, hey, this man's talking my language. You guys don't like explaining anything to do with your music. There's nothing to be said. It's all in the music, man. It's all in the music.
If there was a John Lennon type figure for the so-called Generation X, it would be Cobain.
The body of Nirvana leader Kurt Cobain was found in a house in Seattle on Friday morning, dead of an apparently self-inflicted shotgun blast to the head.
An electrician hired to work on Cobain's home walked up to this room above Cobain's garage and made the shocking discovery this morning.
A suicide note was found.
This is a puzzling case, a very disturbing case.
It first got reported that Kurt was missing, and Courtney Love hired private investigator Tom Grant.
I'd been involved in missing persons cases before. Some red flags started popping up immediately. So I began recording every conversation I had with Courtney during the entire period that I worked for her.
My name's on all of her homes, all of her assets.
It could be made to look like a suicide.
People that I had to do this, I paid.
I've walked into cases that looked like were suicides that turned out to be homicides.
Cobain's wife, singer Courtney Love, was in England on tour with her band Hole when the body was discovered.
As it is, she's inherited a estate worth tens of millions of dollars. That's motive.
Did Courtney Love kill Kurt Cobain? Did she have a hand in any kind of conspiracy? And these are favorite topics of, fanatics.
There's nothing in the medical examiner's report or coroner's reports that could not have easily have been duplicated by a murderer.
It's entirely possible that a police officer, no matter how well trained, may not see or notice a particular item of evidence.
Kurt Cobain was not barricaded inside the room. He did not leave his driver's license out. No one would believe that was a suicide note. Kurt Cobain was injected with 3 times a lethal dose of heroin. The media was getting this wrong.
Are you sure he's not in there?
I knocked for at least 5 minutes.
Harvey, are you still here? Yeah, Grunge Gods, I would. If you're in Seattle, I would do that. Alright, are you able to see the video still? I don't know. I got a heads up that YouTube has detected something in my stream. We also have the Unsolved Mysteries tip from Renee Navarrete, one of the nannies, and another one, which states that Courtney Love came back Saturday night, going into Sunday, and was drunk. This is when she would have been wearing probably the red dress or days later. And we're not supposed to know that. We're supposed to laugh at that. But we're not going to do that. Hey, I'm on. I just got to be quiet because I have the roommate in the basement. Can you hear me? I can't hear you. I'll call you.
Zach?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh,
I just decided to call in.
okay. I got a roommate, but we'll do it really quietly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, you can speak.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Grunge Gods, I was going to say that I, was going over some of your comments from past podcasts or whatever, and I was very impressed with the level of knowledge that you had and inquiry. So I thought it was very good. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, literally my whole time in Toronto, I dedicated to this case for at least really since 2023. It's been nonstop, day and night. I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you barely, but I don't.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, yeah. Since 2023, I've put like every day and night into this. Like to the point where I've been having so many dreams about the case too. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Well, I was typing, so.
Okay, yeah. Keep talking too. Can you see the comments at the same time?
I was gonna say, like Seattle, I moved there in '84, and I didn't. I left in 2017 to take care of my folks in Vermont, and then I went back to Seattle for a year, then moved to Eastern Washington. A little less expensive and crowded, but boy, if you ever got any questions about Seattle, I can tell you, man. I tell you, I loved it. It was an incredibly exciting time. I mean, it was in the 90s. It grew from a little. I mean, it was always a big city, but oh my God, did it explode? On the music scene, on the corporate scene. Microsoft and Starbucks and Costco and Boeing. It was the place to be, man. It was just the place to be.
And and now we have Costco all around the world.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that I can remember in the mid '80s going by some of the warehouses, and wondering if they were going to make it because they were so nondescript, and they were new. And anyway, it's crazy to see that they're as big as Walmart now.
Right.
But a great company for employees to work for. They're good company.
You should mention the time when Kurt was walking beside you and Courtney was behind you. We left out the fact that Courtney was behind the both of you and he was like walking forward away from her with you. Just a second.
So what part of...
Just a sec. Hey, Harvey, okay. Let's speak about because we left this out. Let's speak about when you were walking beside Kurt and Courtney was behind the both of you. We left that part out.
Okay. Yeah, that, when I really only drove Courtney a couple times with Kurt, but I back then you would pick him up at the gate. And so I remember I picked him up the gate and, and I couldn't help but noticing I was walking and I don't remember if I carried any of their baggage or not, but I noticed that Kurt wasn't walking with Courtney. She was trailing behind and Kurt was to my right. And I still swear he was wearing that sweater that he had on the MTV. I could be wrong there, but
That's
kind of sticks in
awesome.
my memory. And I never thought about it, but that whole trip to their house, Kurt was disassociated. He was angry at her. He didn't want to. I think this was right after they were going to do the Lollapalooza tour, and he had said no, and that meant, a several $1 million payday for him, and Kurt wasn't going to do it, and that was like Courtney. That's not, but I could just, I just remember her dragging in the back, and then, listening to the conversation, and she's just laying out all these plans. We got to do this, we got to, and him just like, yeah. Very short one-term answers. And that agitated her, and where she got agitated at me, they just moved into the Lake Washington home, and they didn't even really know how to get there. I mean, Kurt lived in that Lake Washington home, literally only 3 months. I think they bought it in December of 93, and then they went to Europe, and of course in Europe. So I don't think Kurt was ever comfortable in that home,
Right.
Very uncomfortable.
And all the money he would have made from that Lollapalooza tour would have just been siphoned from Courtney, just like she wrote in that note that was found in his wallet.
Yeah, it's like Kurt was living, he was living like a poor college kid, a student. I mean, he did not care about, all the trappings of new money, It's very interesting, his mindset. And that's why I think I've mentioned it, why people associated, they knew he was, he wasn't into the rock and roll party scene. He really wasn't. He was, you could tell. He just,
I wish he
never
had
really, even all the fame didn't really get to him at all. In fact, I think he just absolutely hated it when he lost his anonymity. And
I wish he hanged out with better people and people that didn't do drugs, as well.
Yeah, I just think everything got to be a whirl. Everything for 3 years, it was like, what the, wow. I just think it was, I don't think he ever had time to, and when he did get a break, you needed to relax, or, like a lot of us, it's like going nonstop, day after day.
And what a bad time.
The demands were so great. Yeah, and I'm sure that's why he wanted to relax, and he did. He probably looked forward to it. But that meant that he couldn't do a lot of heroin, because he just had too many responsibilities.
And what a bad time to get married to somebody that just wants to take everything from you, as soon as you become a millionaire. Sorry.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, the MTV and all the parties and the red carpet treatment. And he's like, I mean, this kid's from Aberdeen, and I don't know if any of you guys know what Aberdeen is like, but I mean, it is worlds away from Seattle, much less Hollywood or, the music industry in LA. There's just no comparison. I mean, Aberdeen is a depressed logging town, and the get 60 inches of rain a year and dark. And, oh, man, a lot of taverns, a lot of, unemployed loggers.
And it's still the same
and
to
mill
this day.
workers, it was all a logging town
Yeah.
for years, and it just died in the 80s and 90s. All the everything died.
And it's still the same to this day.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. I know. I mean, I've been through Aberdeen many times. It's really the way to get to the Washington coast and the Olympic National Park on the coast side. So you go through Aberdeen and Hoquiam, and believe me, it's a rough and tumble town, man. That's why Kurt knew guns. I mean, everybody had guns over there. It was the Wild West.
Yeah.
Now,
I'm reading the
does
comments.
anybody let's see here? Oh yeah. In fact, I'm convinced. I'm absolutely convinced. And Zach and I, I'm just trying to read back, and I do have a good memory, but I'm trying to put these things into places, or into the pieces into place. And absolutely, I think he went up there to kick everybody out, to get the divorce going for Courtney, and he was going to clean house. And that's why his life ended. I mean, they knew that he was serious about, and I know that when he got down to Exodus, the recovery, that his mind was on those shells. His mind was on Courtney cheating on him. And he left rehab not for any other reason except I think those shells, and I'll never know, but I believe they got under his skin, and they wanted him to get busted at the airport security going through, not be able to make that flight, and going back and probably killing him then. I don't know. I can't say that, but those are it happened so quick. And if one thing I could have done, I'd look him right back and, the laser lock on those eyes and said, Kurt, are you going to be okay? Give him my phone number or something. I mean, at least get more out, but he had to catch that plane. But man, he was serious about wanting those shells returned. He wanted to have me bring those back and see, and they knew then that they were caught planting those shells. And I can't promise that for sure, but the way he was so intent on wanting those shells returned.
Well,
how surprised he was they were in his carry-on bag.
Yeah, and imagine if, because it's known that he hid the shotgun and shells in a cabinet in the closet in a room. So if he did that and he knew that and they appeared in his carry-on, he would have immediately known that they were messing with him.
Now, if anybody, I was going to say that the one missing piece that I have when I called is I know that Cameron made a handwritten note of my call, and then that's why he gave it to Davis to type it up. So, that's what I can't seem to find that. I could always find it on the internet. It's gone.
Yeah,
I think it's in a book.
It is. It's in
I haven't been able to locate it.
I know it's in the original version that for some reason it's just not uploaded in PDF format online yet. Like someone hasn't taken photos of it. So we have to go to the chapters or
yeah. And that's another thing. Like I talked to Mark Larson, and Mark Larson was a King County prosecutor, a very decorated prosecutor, and he's the one that actually prosecuted Davis for the stealing the money from the dead drug dealer. And he's always felt the case was under investigated. And I'm speaking with him, and but he's backed away. And I've heard rumors that there could be movement, but I don't have that. I've not heard from anybody. It's just so crazy that nobody would ever question. Like, I mean, it's just so basic. It's like I handed them. an investigation on the platter, specifically when Dylan got, that report. Cameron knew that I had it was a simple call. Harvey, we spoke to one of the, friends of Kurt, and he says he was in the car with you. And he also, in Dylan's report, he called me a cab driver. And then that handwritten report by Cameron, he also called me a cab driver. But Davis actually has me as a limo driver, working for Kerry Limousine. So it was crazy. It's crazy. That stuff gets in your head and just makes me so angry now.
And think
I'm
about
just so angry.
Yeah, and think about the corruption. And they had 4 days. They could have done it in 5 days. 4 days. They could have called you back. And
my initial report of the shotgun shells isn't that spectacular. It's only important in relative to Dylan's report. That's where, like, two people looking at these two reports, well, we got to contact Harvey and verify Dylan's story. Because he said that's the last time he saw Kurt, and Kurt told me to keep the shells. That's what it literally says on Dylan's report. And that was taken by Cameron.
And the big thing there is, like we just said in that video, Dylan should not have known about that unless Kurt
the only way he would have known if Kurt had come back and confronted him about it, or the police told him about it. Who knows?
But the police are supposed to just write what they say.
That was the last time he saw Kurt.
Yeah,
that's the last time I saw Kurt. Well, how do you know about the shell?
Yeah,
you weren't in the car.
That means that last time is what Joe Burns is talking about when they appeared and what happened.
Of everything, that's the thing. We have all this evidence, but that is actually catching a suspect in a lie. And he said that he didn't remember. No, you remember everything.
And that's more than a lie.
I remember for 32 years ago.
That's more than a lie. That's like a fraudulent slip or whatever it's called, where you're admitting more. Freudian slip. You're admitting more than you're wanting to let on.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what he did. He should not have known. And the police are just writing down what he says. They're not adding more to his note.
Right.
Yeah. He should not have known that unless Kurt came back and seen him after he came back from leaving rehab.
Yeah, I know. And I've thought a lot that he wanted those shells back because, so that he could kill himself. But he wasn't that, once again, that doesn't add up. The suicide picture, you don't take a guy who, he was not, he had a million reasons to stay alive. He had no reason to take his life except for, the narrative that was set for months, that he was, but he was, my experiences with him is, once again, he was like you and me. It's just terrible what happened to him. I just can't believe it.
And this
all adds up.
This is another point I have to say. You didn't return the shells, so that means again that Dylan shouldn't know about what he said in that police report unless Kurt told him when he got back from rehab.
Well, yeah, and I do believe that he did know that Dylan and Mark or Callie, and that's why he left rehab. I think that he knew that they had set him up.
Well, imagine when Mark and Dylan came in the basement and all that in the house, and Kurt knew that they were setting him up, and there was an argument right then.
And think how he felt when his cards were canceled. All of a sudden he's out getting lunch and dinner, and he can't even. They cut his finances off.
He was going to see the piano, and that was Saturday night, and then he goes back home. It literally fits in.
And he's pissed. That at this point he knew people were after him. I really believe that. I don't have any proof, but
we do.
I just know human nature.
A month before this, he was at Caitlin Moore's apartment, and he didn't want to go home because he was getting death threats, and she thought he was attention seeking and just trying to stay there. and Courtney was calling her voicemail, leaving threatening messages and saying that Kurt needs to leave there. And she called her back and said that Kurt would leave in the morning, and then she kicked him out in the morning.
Just trying to read some of these comments. I get my phone goes dark on me all the time. Trying to save battery. Yeah, it's just hard to believe that all that, it's like all of a sudden, Joe Rogan just had a big article about Jimi Hendrix's death, and Jimi Hendrix was going to leave his manager, and then all of a sudden, he dies from choking on his own vomit. But who poured out? All of a sudden, that's looking at, and then you start thinking about Jim Morrison,
With Kurt,
these poor, young musicians that were being controlled by the music industry.
and
I don't think Geffen had anything to do with it, but I do know that when you've got a $1 billion star on your hands, you get a little upset when you realize they want to leave the industry.
Yeah, and Courtney was Courtney was the one controlling Kurt with that industry, pull and everything, and that was loyal to it, and she was basically working on behalf of them as well.
If Kurt made $1 million, he would have been happy and never, he never would have probably spent it. But now, he's become $1 billion, almost $1 billion type kind of property being dead, just like Elvis and Jimmy. That these guys, they're worth more dead than alive. Their music keeps making money.
Yeah, she would have known. Yeah,
crazy.
It's this is the main thing though. Dylan should not have known about that. The police are just writing down what he says. They should not have known he should not have known about that because you didn't return the bullets. So that would have been.
Yeah, and on the report it says I still had him. On the police report it says Harvey still has them if we need him. Yeah. But they never asked me at that point. It was 11:45 in the morning. I mean, I tell you what, there was somebody, some energy or something allowed me to be at work and to hear as soon as it came out on the radio that there was a body found in Kurt Cobain's house. I mean, I was on that phone literally like, oh shit, did he kill somebody? And then I called and not only did I not leave a message, I actually got right to the homicide detective. But then, I remember I just never questioned. I didn't know all the background details enough to know that, he could have been murdered. And then, with no internet, I mean, I feel kind of stupid going 31 years thinking people would ask me, and it's like, I don't know, but I believe the police. And until it's like seeing a UFO. Like I kind of believe in UFOs. I'd like to see one, but I can't believe in UFOs until I see one. And that's how I felt about Kurt's death. It's like until somebody I know of proof, and of course the proof to me was finding that second report from Dylan. I mean, it was like, talk about a night and day revelation. I go, what? Somebody said they were in the car with us?
Yep, and
it's like, okay, now it all makes sense. That poor kid was murdered.
Yeah, and those two people on April 8th at the house, Mark and Dylan, we caught them both in a lie. Dylan with what we just stated, and Mark with him even admitting in his book that he lied to a Rolling Stone reporter in 1994 about not hearing from Kurt when he came back from rehab.
Well, I would encourage you guys, if you want to, just key in Don Cameron, Seattle Police Department, Seattle Times, and that'll give you all the dirt on the that department was corrupt. There is no question about it. That they had, back then, they ran their department the way they wanted to see fit. And when the Davis's partner, turned him in, they just said like, hey, this is normal stuff. This is department stuff. And then of course they tried to bring the money back, and janitor saw him and busted him, and there was 8 detectives and even internal affairs knew about this stuff, and they were going to shove it under the rug, but they had a new SPD captain called Stamper, and that the partner of Davis made enough of a stink, he wasn't going to back down. I guess there was loud arguments about it, like, you don't ruin this for us. And of course, they both they're dirty. I mean, but Cameron had 38 years on the department at that time, and he was pretty revered, and he'd been a landmark detective on what they call the Wah-Mee massacre that happened in Seattle in the early 80s that killed like 13 Asians in a basement gambling hall. That was really sensational back in the early 80s.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he might have had something to do with the who's the other serial killer there?
Green River Killer?
Not the Green River. The God, I don't know what terrible. I just forgot. He got executed in Florida, but he's from Seattle.
Bundy?
Huh?
Ted Bundy?
Yeah, Ted Bundy. Right.
I know his brother.
Yeah, he might have worked on the Ted Bundy case even.
Yeah. Oh,
he was there for that long.
Wow.
Anyway, it's all crazy.
Yeah, they got busted for stealing money off of a dead drug dealer.
Yeah, he had shot at the cops, and the cops killed him. And then when they came in there, he saw that drug money, and they just pocketed it.
Wow.
Oh, really? I really can't even watch Courtney. I couldn't watch her do anything. I just, she's almost. I don't want to pick on any Trump, fans, but she's a malignant narcissist, and she needed attention and she needed control.
Like any tyrant. Yeah.
And when she knew that Kurt was going to. That was like, I can see why she had him killed, It's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Terrible.
I can't believe
it's so crazy. I mean, it's really, it's a cold case detective. I don't know if they could ever, after all these years, actually be able to take it to court and get a conviction. It'd be very interesting. And I swear to God, and I'm hoping somebody's working on it, that they are doing some investigations. I mean, they don't need to open it. They're going to open the case until they have solid evidence that they can make arrests,
I hope so.
So, I don't know if that's happening or not. The official SPD is that the case is closed and not going to be reopened. But I will say that I have heard that possibly, and I got to be careful because this isn't firsthand. It's kind of secondhand that they are going to hand the files to the King County prosecutors, and but that hasn't happened, and it may not happen in 6 months, or it may never happen, or it may take another year. These investigations,
mm-hmm.
And the fact that nobody's ever contacted me makes me think that. But there have been inquiries. In fact, I thought Grunchgod might have been with the SPD or the King County prosecutors. I'm disappointed to hear he's in Alabama.
Yeah, what I was going to say is, wouldn't it be amazing if it was 2027 when it actually happened? When things actually...
Yeah, why is that? Why 2027?
Because he was 27 when he died.
Oh, 27, yeah.
Yeah, that would be quite a thing.
Yeah, no, at least one thing, I can tell you guys, I'm a reliable person, and I just like Zach, we talked about that we need to trust each other.
Mm-hmm.
And
know each other and
my
trust.
past, and being an old man now, 68, it's nobody can really come after me for any dirt, so that's a good thing. I mean, I guess I haven't lived a perfect life, but I've never hurt anybody.
No.
Never been busted for drugs or,
no.
DUI or anything. Kind of a miracle to get through life without that.
It's weird that you're the opposite of Courtney.
I didn't live a perfect life.
It's weird that you're the opposite of Courtney and you have to explain it, and she can just get away with everything that she did.
Well, it's like finally I had Neil Lowe, who was the Seattle lieutenant, and he has written some. He has finally questioned was Cameron. They had 4 days to get to somebody that he walked into that murder scene and claimed it was a suicide within an hour. He walked in. And I just don't know who would have the guts to go to Cameron and say, "Hey, there's $100,000 in it for you if you just call it a suicide."
Yeah.
But, that'll be that would have been interesting to know. I'd certainly like to put him up to a lie detector test on it.
Yeah.
I'll take a lie detector anytime, anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Get these people on. I know that it's not admissible, but God dang, I just know that the Seattle police, they covered that case up. They never did a proper they did no investigation. They walked in by 11:45. Don Cameron told me we got the case under control, and then he had already just determined that it was a suicide. Never shut the scene down. For had people walking in and out.
Mm-hmm.
It's a joke. It was a joke.
I spelled Baserman.
Anyway, I got to get going.
Yeah. What I played,
Well, the reason why, they
yeah.
said why. What makes you wonder why Don helped place the money back? It's because they wanted to cover it up. I mean, it was real simple. They knew they were busted, but if they put the money back, they thought they could keep that they could solve the problem internally. The problem was that when they did sneak back into the crime scene to put the money back, a janitor or a foreman in the complex caught them.
Mm-hmm.
And that once they were caught, they still tried. In fact, I'd like to know how many people actually detectives felt that case was a murder, and they just, Don Cameron, you couldn't challenge him. He was a bully. He was had all these years, and he was the boss. And if you were a new detective, you weren't going to go up to. That's just not the way law enforcement works. It's very much like the military. You follow the chain of command, and if you challenge your commanding officer, that's not a good recipe for advancement.
No.
So yeah, it's pretty crazy.
It's crazy. I hope they do something, because the police are just telling us right now that you can set people up. If you're mad at them, you can just do a false police report about them being suicidal and get away with murder. So that's what we're learning here.
Yeah, right. And also, I'm just going back up. That changing her name back to Courtney Cobain. Mm-hmm. What an insult to Kurt. That's just so painful.
Yeah, even in my mind, when I think of her, I never even think of Courtney Love Cobain. I think of Courtney Michelle Harrison. That's her.
When she was married, she never gave up her last name. She never, she was always Courtney Love.
Right. It's kind of like feel sympathy for me. I'm a widow.
Well, yeah, she's still trying to get attention and now sympathy. And even, I guess, that she's now admitting that he was probably murdered. But I don't want to pick on, I don't know enough, but I wonder, Tom Grant, why he never contacted me. Everybody, I go out and I try to, and like Jason Jensen. He literally told me, he said the last time Jason we talked to him, because he's supposed to be the big private investigator. He doesn't want to muck up what he's got going for him. He's got Gary Cobain as a client, and he just literally told Zach and I to lie, and he also stated that we were going to mess up the case for him.
He told my friend Danny to lie.
He's telling the truth, mess up a case.
I know.
It's like, and then he got scared. He does not want to deal with me. He knows I've got money. He knows I've gotten educated. He knows I don't have a police report. I don't have a police background or a law enforcement. I mean, he knows I'm a serious person that has important information, and I don't get it. Why wouldn't he take me serious? Chris Todd doesn't take me serious. Those guys are phony.
They want to make you
They're
not
phony.
serious.
I'm telling you.
They want to make people not take you seriously. Like, they told Danny to lie. They told you to lie. They told me to lie. And we shouldn't be saying this, but I think we should be. They shouldn't be saying what they said to us.
Oh, hey, you never deter from the truth. Once you're caught in a lie, you're no longer credible.
Right, everything
You're
that's
no
true.
longer credible. That's a lifetime of experience. And that if you lie, nobody will look at you the same again.
I wish Joe
just a
thought
lie.
about that. Yeah. The fuck.
Yeah, you cannot. You change your story up, you'll get caught. I mean, it's just that's something I've always been true to. I cannot lie. I cannot lie. George Washington, I cannot tell a lie. It's just not who I am. Can't do it.
If it's not proven yet, and I'm here when I'm 60 talking about Mark Lanigan, I still will be.
Yeah. Well, like I said, this case will never die. If it's not solved in 100 years, someday people are going to find those police reports and they're going to come clean. And but I know that the SPD has tremendous liability. And if they admit that they made a mistake and they covered up important information that that everybody they convicted will, they won't be able. They'll get appealed or they'll be released. It's just like if you have a bad cop that you catch, fraudulently giving tickets, or every ticket the guy ever wrote will be null and void and written off anybody's records.
Right.
And that's ultimately why SPD will not open this case. They know that the liability and all those cases that those detectives worked on will be in doubt. They will have to revisit them. I mean, they're almost all dead, though. You're talking 32 years. Anybody that, they was both, I think Davis, they've both been dead for 20 years.
They'd at least be in their 80s, because they'd at least be almost in their 30s in the 90s.
Yeah, 32 years ago, I mean, they were both in their 50s, or I think Cameron was in his 60s and he retired he was forced to retire. They were going to go after him and they let him retire. They let him retire. It's a very fascinating case to listen to that, to read what happened in Seattle. I mean, that was pretty big news, front page news. It was front page news.
And it was recently, too.
That story about the dead drug dealer and them getting caught. It went on for years. I think it went on for from 96 to 2001, something like that. It took them years of trial. And of course, the conflict. The Seattle police hated the King counties. I mean, all of a sudden you've got them at odds with each other. That has never really been. But when you have the King County prosecutors, I mean, the worst enemy in a police department is internal affairs. And in fact, the internal affairs even knew about it, and they didn't do anything about it until the new police chief came down and said there will be something done about it.
Right.
But otherwise, it was old school. It was like, New York cops getting a piece of the heroin trade. And there's all sorts of shit like that. I mean, that happened. And in reality, I mean, the police are one thin line away from being criminals themselves.
Oh, yeah, especially him. And he was let off, right? Well, he resigned.
Yeah, he was going to, they gave him a break. And plus, it's incredibly hard. And I don't know if you know this, but police don't rat on each other. And also, if you get a jury of 11 juries to find, one, they just will always side with the police no matter what the evidence is. And that's what happened in Davis's case. He never admitted. He wouldn't do a plea deal. And he was angry at Cameron, for not backing him, and it's all so convoluted. It's just like crazily convoluted. And it all stems that, there's a lot of secrets that are unknown, a lot of secrets that we'll never know.
We need a Nirvana fan for a SPD police officer.
Exactly. I've thought of that. I need to get about a 56-year-old, 56-year-old experienced.
Mhm.
And I know that Michelle, and I know that that's a problem for people, and I'm not dealing with Michelle right now, but they do have a cold case detective on the Seattle Police Force, and all they have to do is review it and have somebody take a revisit and also deal with me. Somebody's got to deal with me, because that is the very front end again. It's the very front end.
You and Joe.
Should start an investigation. I'm not saying I got all the answers. I just know that I got important information that you should legitimately start an investigation.
All the answers are with
The most real information. I mean, all that science and all that stuff. Well, what was the cover-up? What opens up a cover-up? Well, those two police reports, quite simply, are enough to open an investigation or to review the case internally, or to get it to a third party. Like, okay, we can't do this, but could you do it? Because we need a fresh set of eyes. But ultimately, the reason why they won't is too much liability.
They need to interview you and Joe Burns, because they would realize Dylan lied and Joe Burns seen what happened.
Sure, they could get Dylan in a room and interrogate him. I don't know, and they could start, I know that attorney would have to be present, but, they should be able to offer some kind of plea deal for better information about where he got his orders to kill it. It was not done by Dylan and Lanigan alone. It was done and orchestrated through Tom Grant and Courtney Love. That's what I believe happened. I can't prove it, but that's not my job. I don't want to be somebody that thinks he knows, but I can't prove any of that. But I sure can help prove those two reports.
I can definitely say
Like it happened yesterday.
Tom Grant's covered this whole thing up, so that's what makes him look suspicious. Like, we would have known
Why
about.
the hell he wouldn't call me? Anybody that had any interest. My phone number and address was on that report. It's just crazy that they all. I mean, I just disappeared, and they hoped, and they did. It was successful for 31 years. They, the only time I ever had any official investigation was the last 48 hours of Kurt Cobain. And what bothered me about watching that again, I mean, somehow they had contacted me through the police records, the police reports. And I remember I was working at Microsoft at the time, and
Wasn't that 2005?
Hey,
Was that 2005 or 2007?
Yeah, 2005. Yeah,
2005.
Yeah, I think it came out. But they sent me a copy of the CD. I thought that was pretty cool. That's the only time anybody outside any third party has ever contacted me. And I had more to say in that report. I mean, in that documentary. But in fact, watching it again, I'm angry because they just kept painting him as a depressed, drug addicted, suicidal person, and it's just not what it was like.
They had an idea going into that documentary of how they would present the whole thing.
Right, yeah, and that, anyway, that's crazy.
There needs to be one documentary that comes out that's actually in favor of Kurt Cobain and doesn't seem like it is, but actually is.
Yeah, like here they say, but once again, all the city of Seattle and the Seattle PD will get, if they found out that those two detectives were corrupt or negligent, and then that means every case they ever worked on would become subject to review.
Mm-hmm.
That will let a lot of murderers out.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't trust, once a detective is found to be negligent on a case, it's going to haunt them forever, even if it's that long. In Blue Line, yeah, that's right. I mean, it's crazy how they protect themselves. I mean, you can watch, I always recommend the channel on YouTube, TCRL, the civil rights lawyer. I mean, it's just like, it's tough to be caught, but holy cow,
And this one skyrockets into a lot more crime, not just with Kurt Cobain's murder, but even the suicide.
Oh my God.
Remember even the suicide?
Yeah. Yeah, anybody like you let my child died because Kurt took his life. Yeah, that's another one that's very important. That you know, how could you not investigate this properly? And my son's taking his life because of you know, Kurt's influence over him.
Yeah, Matthew Ricker wrote a book about a lot of kids that did that, even in Canada. This one kid, he was underage too, and he took a shotgun to his mouth, and he said he was around like 4 of his friends, and he said, I remember reading this when I was like 19. Matthew's book. I'm 33 now, but he put a shotgun to his mouth and said, "Look, guys, I'm Kurt Cobain," and he pretended to shoot himself, but it actually went off in front of his friends.
Oh God, yeah, you know, and when you're even today, I mean, the pressure on kids is so much with all the social networking popularity. In fact, it's kind of interesting. I heard Seattle schools just banned cell phones.
Oh, wow!
I
Why?
thought it was pretty good news. You know,
That's good.
While they're at school.
You won't, yeah, because I would hate to go to school now and like get bullied or something.
Oh, all these kids buried in their damn phones. Oh, that would drive me nuts.
And imagine getting bullied. Imagine getting beaten up, and it's all filmed.
Right. Yeah, terrible. Yeah, no, I think it's a good idea. I mean, I think kids learn how to play together again, or, you know, not have all these little social networks that they're working and texting through their phones all day long, you know, and it's addicting.
And about Richard Lee, I want Richard Lee here too. I've asked him to interview him.
Yeah, I want Richard Lee because that son of a bitch has kind of spoken down to me and said that I gave the shells away, and you know that I.
Oh,
you know,
really?
Just kind of badmouthed me.
Yeah, he likes to say
you
whatever.
know, basically calling me a liar. I don't. That dude's.
Oh, wow.
You know, it'd be interesting too to Duff McKagan. You know, if Kurt talked to him anything about that last, you know, as they did sit together on the flight back. It'd be interesting to know if Duff, if Kurt explained anything that what he thought might have been going on. Duff has never said anything, but
Right.
I mean, he's a pretty good dude.
If they sat together, that's more than a 10-minute conversation, right? That's like an hour or
Yeah,
something.
that was a 2.5-hour flight, you know, together drinking, where I'm sure Kurt opened up about some pretty interesting shit. It'd be interesting if he, you know, ever brought up the subject of the shotgun shells.
Yeah, if Duff McKagan's telling the truth and not trying to like put himself in a situation he's not involved in for more attention, if he's telling the truth, that means he would know everything, and that would make sense why, you know, even Mark Lanigan became his caregiver for his homes in Seattle and LA in 1997, the same year El Duce was killed for mentioning the 50 grand which Lanigan received.
And you know, they said Duff says that he didn't ever drink water during those years. You know, he said basically what he's described is, I didn't know what water was. Everything was liquor, and everything was a drink.
To Duff, yeah.
Yeah, until you know, he nearly died. But now that dude's really got his shit together now. You know, he's really enjoying his life. I mean, that's what's interesting to see is when you're young how you screw things up. That if you can get through it, and that's why we all miss Kurt so much, is the influence and the confidence and you know, the work that he would have been able to body of work on his terms.
The realness
would have been amazing.
The realness of Kurt. If Duff knows anything more, he should be like Kurt and be real and true. That's what he would want.
Well, I know I saw a video where that Richard Lee really went after him. I mean, Duff went after him physically. You know, because Duff came, it was a book signing or something. It's on YouTube. I saw it actually.
KCCM or WM. Someone said, oh, Rob did. Why didn't Richard Lee want to talk to you?
I don't know. Nobody knew how to get hold of me. I got divorced right after in 2007. I left my house, you know, separated from my wife, and no, I just don't know. I mean, maybe I wasn't that easy to get hold of. He never attempted, and I always American Spy Fox has never reached out. There's a lot of.
I reached out. It's not like Richard Lee couldn't. Richard Lee was like the first YouTuber before YouTube even came out.
Yeah.
Like,
and I don't know. I mean, but Richard Lee was saying, I've never met the man, never talked to him. And, I hate when people are saying things about me that are untrue or third party, especially the fact selling shells. Like Dean swears I sold shells to him or tried to sell shells to him. And that's the farthest thing from anything that ever happened. I never even thought ever of selling a shell.
Yeah,
no. Offensive to me. And that's why I didn't care about those shells that much, because they just represented a tragedy. I mean,
I just want to say this too. Dean tried to present the photo that you sent to him from the person you gave the shell to, like you were giving it to him, but you didn't do that. That photo was sent to Dean, but the shell itself.
I sent him that photo. I sent him that photo.
Yeah, the shell was not sent to Dean.
I called my friend that has that shell, and he said, "Yeah, he sent it to me. I sent it right to Dean."
So the photo.
Got that picture of that shell from me.
The photo, yeah, not the shell. Yeah. Because he's trying to play. He's trying to play it off. He's trying to play it off like you gave him the shell, but you didn't. You just sent him a photo of it.
No, God, no. Yeah.
And someone said right here, Rob did again. For some reason, 1997 was the year that so many revelations happened. Dylan gets interviewed in 97. Callan gets his job at Geffen. Mark becomes the caregiver for Duff McKagan and receives the about like 50 grand. And El Duce died. And El Duce got killed.
Right. What about Terry? The Detective Terry from the SPD?
That was 97 too, was that 97? I'm gonna freak out if it was.
I don't know. I've never really looked into that one. I just remember that somehow you got associated.
Ontario Terry, right? Or something like that. I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah. And I think he was killed like on the side of the road or side of the highway off an on-ramp or something. But
let's see if that was 1997.
Yeah, that's it's interesting. Like I say, when you're high and you want to get
94.
I never did heroin, but I did my share of drugs, and I just remember that once you were high, the when you needed more, there was. I mean, you weren't that person. You don't recognize that person that
and Mark
drive to do anything to get more drugs.
And even Mark admitted that in his book, Grunge Gods, that he would do anything. He even threatened to kill his own mom to her face.
Yeah, and it's, once you get back to Richard Lee, I don't know. I just never talked to him. I don't know. I didn't know of him. I only. I just catch some shorts on YouTube and who's this dude talking about me? I didn't know who he was. I mean, I hate to say it. I didn't live, eat, and breathe this case for 30. It was always a good story to tell, but it was just a 5-minute story at a bar or a party. Hey, I got a good Kurt Cobain story. I drove him to the airport and he gave me a box of shells.
There's got to be a way.
Have them.
If I email,
but like I said, I mean, over the years, I've told that story to probably 1,000 people. I mean, I worked at Mike. I got pretty well known on Facebook. I talked about it. Like people would say, what's the most important, event that you can highlight in your life? Mine was always a Kurt Cobain story. It was always Kurt Cobain. That was very, and now I can't believe how important it is. It's like come full circle. And I really, really want to get this case reviewed or have somebody be serious about it.
Yeah, I'm glad we got a hold of you. I mean, it's like Courtney and Dylan weren't expecting somebody that.
What I'll tell you the story is how I got found is I used to have a drug dealer I used to buy some drugs from, and I'd always meet this one friend, and so he knew my story, and somehow Dean says, I got to find this limo driver, and so he said, this guy named Eric called me and said, hey, I got a guy that's very interested in your story. Do you want to? And so they ended up both driving out to Spokane, and that's where I had that initial interview. And that was the first time that I learned that about Dylan or somebody being in the car, and that was November, my very first podcast with Dean. I mean,
Wow.
if you watch me on that interview, you can tell that's the first time I heard that somebody was in the car with us. I'm like, what the? No, nobody was in the car. That was it. And once again, why people back then, why I was confused on the dates was nobody had ever asked me for 30 years. I just knew it was about a week before he died. I didn't have it imprinted in my mind that it was March 30th. I thought it was like a Friday. But what I tell people is that what I remember Kurt telling me that he had just bought a shotgun and shells that day, and that was March 30th. And so, I got that cleared up, but initially I was confused, and people, will nail me on that, but I don't care,
Right.
You try to remember an exact date, 32, 30 years ago.
Well, we've been
Even though it was with Kurt, the most, and I was intimidated by Kurt. Don't think when you're driving him, you don't realize that you've got this rock star. I mean, it was very quiet, very reserved, and I just respected his privacy. It was the only time he could sit and not be noticed was in the back of the car and smoke a cigarette and relax.
Right.
I wasn't going to make small talk with him. Like, how you doing today, Kurt? Like, hey, what's it like? If he'd opened up, I really, but I just was respectful of, not being a nosy or, small talk bullshit guy that you don't know, that you really don't, care to know that well. But, by the time when I drove him, he knew me well enough.
Yeah.
Only on a professional level, though. Not going to say we were buddies or anything like that. But that's what makes my story even better.
It does. Yeah.
Oh, who's Dean? Dean, he's got Kurt's army, and he's the one that really he's ended up being a real flake. You can trust him, and he's really wants to be the center. But he pretends like he was good friends with Kurt. But I trusted him in the beginning, but I would not recommend. I was very, very disappointed, and he's called me a liar. He wants to bring up stories that could be hurtful to my reputation that I was honest about to that original friend. I mean, I'm not perfect life. I'm just like everybody.
Yeah, he turned against Joe
But
like
anyway,
that too.
Dean is, Zach is in it for the right reasons. Dean is in it because he wants to be famous. Big difference.
And he turned against Joe as well, and started just saying a lot of things that didn't even make sense.
Yeah, and he's just upset. He's upset because he really doesn't like, and I understand it. The Who Killed Kurt channel official, and there's some real bad blood there. I don't understand it. I just want to get as much information out and enough people, informed that this case makes sense, that we can apply pressure to make it happen, and as far as I'm concerned, I'm the only person. I mean, I know Joe, but I'm the only person that's viewing this case as a neutral observer who was there at the time. Was observing Kurt, had the shotgun shells, able to kind of, made the police report. And so, yeah, I think I'm a very important central figure in this thing, and I never thought that for 31 years.
Yeah, you are. With the
now I think, I literally walk. I just think and think and think, and I'll talk to Kurt and say, God damn it, Kurt, we're going to try to get through this. We're going to try to get you absolved, and but I relive everything constantly now, and it would have killed me if that had happened 31 years ago. I couldn't have. It would have killed me, because it's interesting this stage in life when you get later to have passion about something like this, knowing that what happened is actually important 31 years later. 32 years now, but it's incredibly interesting time in your life that you want to get this moving forward. You have information that's important that you know you can make a difference, and you can get, you know, all these people that love Kurt and believed in him and know it didn't happen, you know, make it real.
Mm-hmm.
Incredibly. I do love it in a way, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I care. It's great to have, I mean, just to be a retired guy that, you know, no purpose. This has given me a lot of purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Just like you. That's why I like Zach, the passion. You know, for a guy. It's just like, I mean, you are in it for the right reasons. You know, you want this to happen, and you've made things. You've worked hard to try to make it happen.
Yeah. Literally, I think about my attempt on my life over this and how it doesn't matter what else happens. It's just, I want to know the truth myself. It bugs me out to where it's like,
you're, I mean, and it's a really, this is not conspiracy shit. You know, this is real. It's not conspiracy. It's real. I mean, Kurt was murdered. I just can't stand it. I can't stand the fact that I know now that he was murdered, and I know I had information that could have, you know, it's just incredible that how it's maddening it is internally. It's just like, God damn it. Why aren't people taking me serious? You know, I know that they are. I have a feeling they are, but I just don't. They keep me at an arm's length.
It's just that,
you know, who killed Kurt and Mark Larson. I mean, I'm emailing Mark Larson, and he just keeps real quiet, and he just says it's a righteous, but then he told me he's backing off from the case. I just don't know. I just don't know.
There would be a lot.
I don't know if anything will ever really happen, but
no, there would be a lot more people that would take you seriously if the Seattle police actually did something about all the information that's out there.
Yeah. No, they don't. They know.
Yeah.
They absolutely. They're not stupid. They know, but they know that if they open it up, it's just a can of worms that they're not. They're already overwhelmed. You know, with Seattle's got tons of problems, homelessness, and you know, murders, and I mean, they got big city problems. You know, and the idea like, oh no, we opened this case, you know, that's 32 years old. We just, you know, they just choose to say no, and you know, I let Mark Larson go, look, I got money, you know, I'll pay you. And I think, you know, we could prove negligence in the SPD. But, you know, it's like that doesn't fly very well. You got to be kind of, you know, be more, give them a chance, you know, but
or more like you don't want to talk to them.
I would like to talk to an attorney and say, hey, I've got this information that the SPD covered this up, and I want to file a suit, you know, a civil suit for negligence. You know, I'm willing to throw 10 grand, you know, whatever I'd have to make, because I know that when somebody gets a letter from an attorney, they have to take it serious. You know, it's all, they can not worry about it. But when they get a letter from an attorney that they're going to be sued for negligence, and this is why, I mean, that's what I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to I don't know if that could ever happen, but I'm willing to put some money on the line to get that letter. And I let Mark Larson know that. I mean, Mark Larson's a decorated and still very powerful man. And I have to believe that he cares. I mean, Mark Larson, you know, King County prosecutor's office. And that guy was highly decorated. And he, not only that, he's close enough that he knows when I tell him that Davis took my, you know, that Cameron and Davis covered it. He knows that happened. He knows that they just keep that stuff very close to their vest. You know, I don't know quite what to think. I've never been involved in a situation like this, but I just feel like I've offered every important information to a person who knew how to get it to the right places. And I don't know what they're doing about it. I really don't.
Kind of waiting for it
to die off. Every day, literally, I wait. I hope. I mean, I don't live, eat, and breathe it, but I do think about it every day. When will I hear some news? That the case is, you know, being, but it came real close to being open, but the new chief, and then, of course, a new mayor in Seattle.
And not the same kind of 2015 news where they just don't even do an actual review.
I mean, once again, I mean, when they reviewed it, why didn't he call me? They had my phone. I mean, I'm still at, my ex still lives in that house in Bellevue.
Mm.
You know, it's like they can contact her to get hold of me. It's just not that hard. It's just real basic.
That's not an investigation. That's one of the main
All
things.
they needed to do is look at those 2 reports and give me a call, validate that Dylan was not in the call, but they don't want to do that. They do not want these stories uncovered. They don't want to. They literally don't. They know that they've known for 30 years that this has been a problem, and they've just kept it at arm's length. And
it just keeps adding up with bad problems, though, that happened related to this case.
Yeah, they literally. I'm literally like, I think we described it. You ever watched the movie Deliverance? They had to kill a couple of hillbillies that raped them in the backwoods of Georgia. And then, of course, they think they got away with it because, and then all of a sudden, on the lake, a hand, rises from the bottom of the lake. It's like, there's a body that's been discovered. And that's the end of the movie. And I'm like, I swear to God, I'm that hand that's being risen from the lake that should open an investigation. I can't solve the problem. I can't say who killed him or anything like that, but I can certainly raise questions that should initiate an investigation.
I only say who did it because Joe Burns talking about it and then connecting all the Unsolved Mysteries tips and last album and his book, Lanigan.
Yeah, and here's Rob talking about Michelle. Like I have Michelle's phone number. I don't talk, but we text, and I'll just like pour out everything, and then I won't hear anything back. And then she'll come up and want me to, do a podcast about, my experience about the cover-up between Davis and Cameron
for another
on the police reports, and and then all of a sudden she goes dark, and I don't want to get mad at her. I don't want to start like.
It's kind of
I just lay low. I keep laying low because I don't want to get angry.
It's kind of like you're in the limelight again. We're going to be known with what you're going to say regarding this now. So speak to us.
Yeah. I mean, I just can't help but think that they all know, all the important people, but I just haven't heard back. But
it's the police
I keep
that
finding that my little, when I go back to like my first podcast or our first interview with them, I was just starting to figure things out. And that was about a year, 14 months ago, I think February of 2025. But I mean, when you watch like the progression of the 3 podcasts, the last one I did with Zach really starts to put it together. I really started understanding everything a lot better than what I did in the first 2. And I did a good job in the first 2. I just wasn't aware
of that police report by Dylan where he's saying something that he could have only known if Kurt came back after rehab.
Yeah, it took a while for me to sink in, I don't know why. I mean, it made me mad, and then, once again, reading my police report, Davis, who's Davis? I talked to Cameron. Where's the handwritten report? And then, all of a sudden looking up Davis. Oh God, that was the dude that got caught.
With the same,
really tied it together, lovely.
with the same guy, Cameron, Don Cameron, on the Cobain case.
Like I go, who's this Davis guy? I thought my report was taken by Cameron. I mean, this was like 6 weeks ago when I finally wanted to do some research because I always knew Cameron was associated with the stealing money of a dead drug dealer, and I thought it was Cameron that did it, but no, it was Davis. And Cameron was his boss, and then Davis is the one that typed my report up. It's just crazy. It's just so crazy.
Oh wow, yeah.
Bunch of thieves.
But that's the main point right now. Dylan shouldn't have known about what he put in that police report on April 12th, unless, like Joe states, there was an interaction with Dylan and Kurt after Kurt came back from Exodus. And the police aren't just going to type up.
And as far as what all I really want to do is initiate a letter that could once government gets a letter from a lawyer, they start taking you very seriously. What could go next? I don't know. And you're right, 10K would go maybe 5 hours, 10 hours of work from an attorney. But but anyway,
it's the biggest thing I think we still have to talk about. Really, Dylan shouldn't have known about that experience with the shells and returning them, because he didn't go back to the house to return them. And the police aren't going to write down, what they known from a different report. They're just going to write what he says. So he would only have known that if he talked to Kurt when Kurt returned back from rehab, which we know from the eyewitness, Bonnie and Joe, who were dating at the time, that Dylan did show up when Kurt was back from rehab.
Yeah.
But he didn't think about that in the report. I'm glad he's dumb.
Yeah.
I'm glad he's really stupid. I'm glad he slipped up like that. But it's so stupid that the police didn't pick up on that. 32 years ago now.
As far as what Frances knows, I'm sure that she probably, but I have a daughter, and mothers and daughters, like she may know, but she doesn't want to send her mother to jail. And I can't say that, but that's just, I'm thinking of mothers and daughters. Even I just know, like if I know I can listen to my daughter criticize my ex, but if I criticize her, or if somebody else outside criticizes her, bandas, the hair get up on my daughter's neck, Like, only I can criticize her. Don't you dare criticize my mom. And I know that Frances probably feels the same way, that she doesn't like her mom, she hates her, but she's not going to,
put her in a bad place.
Put her in jail.
Yeah.
Not going to put her in jail.
Exactly.
And I can understand that. I mean, I'd love to have a few minutes with Frances just to say, but I think she knows who her dad, was. But I don't know. Courtney influenced him. He was a loser drug addict, He was suicidal. He was terrible, but I think she knows her father was a little bit more than that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. If I can tell that just by looking at videos of them together when I was 19, yeah.
Yeah. When the way he holds her and the way he looks at her, he wouldn't have taken his life. He wasn't that. He was not a selfish person.
He was soft around her. Yeah.
Yeah. And he knew. I mean, he didn't have a good relationship with father, and he's rebellious. And I'm sure that he, like anybody, they want to make amends and make sure that their child's life is not like that.
Yeah.
That he's going to be a good father. He's going to be there for her.
Yeah, I'd take her the hell away from her.
He was a really smart guy.
He was. I'd take her the hell away from Courtney as well. Just.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's funny. Here he could get away from Courtney, and he could just be a father. He could just get his life back.
And getting away from Courtney. Oh, sorry. Getting away from Courtney would have been getting away from that lifestyle too.
Right. And even John Lennon, when he had his second son, Sean, he spent several years away from in the early 70s, away from the music industry, so he could just be a father. But John Lennon did it, and that was his, Beatles were Kurt's heroes. And then, when Sean got a little older, he got back into making music. And then, of course, his life was taken in 1980.
Oh, wow.
And those 10 years, that's when he got his life back. He loved living in New York City. He could be anonymous in New York City. It's amazing how much he loved that city.
By David Chapman, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we lost, just like Kurt. I mean, it's just like, oh my God, we lost somebody that could still be, so positive member of society.
More than
you get through these rough years. It's all you got to do is get through some rough challenges, and then your perspective and your knowledge and your comfort in yourself is so much greater.
And isn't it amazing that
all of a sudden you believe in yourself again? You work through the problems. You recognize your success.
Kurt's influence would triumph, like, even if you put 200 celebrities that are famous nowadays together, it would still triumph that influence.
Yeah, no, he would have been a very important contributor to society.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he would have been confident. He would overcome any of his challenges. And, anyway, I got to get going. You guys, I appreciate it.
Yeah, me too.
The listening. I hope it adds some value.
I'm gonna go to sleep. Yep. Yep.
Me too. It's even getting towards 12 o'clock on the West Coast, or on the West Pacific Standard Time. So appreciate it.
Yeah, 2:41
All right,
here.
I'll let you go then.
All right, we'll talk to you later, Harvey.
Okay, everybody, take care.
All right, see ya. All right, guys, I'll be back tomorrow, most likely. It was nice catching up with you guys again and doing something important. Dylan shouldn't have known about that. He shouldn't have known about the shells unless Kurt came back from rehab and Dylan ran into him. And we know because of Joe Burns and Bonnie Dillard, who goes by the name Bonita Kelsey nowadays, that they did. Thank you for the slip up, Dylan. Thank you for riding on yourself. Thank you, Rob and Harvey and Grunge Gods. Sausage biscuits. Everybody, I'll see you later. Thank you for listening. And I'll try to do some more live streams more often again. Have a good night. Peace. See you later.